Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Garden Glow Up podcast. My name is Amy, and today we're going to be doing a behind the scenes look of what happens at flower shows. So, if you've ever been to a flower show, they have wonderful installations, they have beautiful presentations by the vendors, there are competitions, and there is a wonderful flower show happening in 1 month, May 17th through the 19th. You may have heard of the Redland International Orchid Festival. And my guest today is Bart, and he is the brains behind this orchid festival. And not just this one, but two others as well. So the Tamiami International Orchid Festival and the Rare Plants Festival. So,
That's right.
Bart, would you like to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's
I'm
exciting to
excited
be
you're
part of
here.
this. Yeah, it's exciting to be part of this podcast.
Yes.
And, you know, things like this are so important for promoting appreciation of plants, of orchids. And so we're really excited to be here. So about me, I grew up in the orchid business. I'm a third generation orchidist. My grandfather grew orchids, but kind of like at a pro-am, like professional amateur level, right? Like he sold some plants. He was just really into orchids. And my father is Martin Motes. He's one of the world experts on vandas. One of the biggest kind of forces in the orchid world. I can show you a copy of one of his wonderful books, Vanda,
Nice.
which is it's awesome. It's like this like beautiful. It's like a scientific book disguised as a coffee table book, because
Got
like
it.
it's got so many pretty pictures in it. Like
Yeah.
you can just kind of dig in. So we're really proud of that. And my day job is to work here at Motes Orchids, promoting the what's the word I'm looking for? We have unique hybrids. We people have sometimes seen our really dark vandas.
Those
We're
are
known for.
gorgeous.
Thank you
They're
so much. We're really
breathtaking.
proud of them. Yeah, we're really proud
Yeah.
of them. And we're kind of like the facility that I'm in right now actually is our new lab, where we hope to miraclone those plants and bring them to people at affordable prices, because, you know, we really want everyone to be able to enjoy these, not just collectors who can afford to spend thousands of dollars on them.
Right.
And that's the goal. But to do that, you have to miraclone them. You have to create them in large enough numbers for it to make sense. So about me, I'm a recovering attorney. Okay. I, I went to law school. I practiced law for about a dozen years. I was a commercial litigator. I was at this like humongous law firm. And at some point I was like, wow, this is not really conducive to my mental health, or my like what am I contributing to the world? Am I making people happier?
Yeah.
Didn't really feel like it. And so I decided to pivot, and we pivoted into doing orchids. I am married to a brilliant and beautiful person named Karina Motes, and her name is on one of those dark vandas, and she is actually my partner in running these events. And she does a lot of the logistical work on the ground. So she organizes the volunteers. We'll talk. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk a lot more about what goes into promoting one of these
Yep.
events, and it's a lot of work. It involves a lot of people, and we couldn't. No single person can do it. So I'm here, but I represent a lot of people by being here today, including
Of course.
my wife. Yeah, and I also have two incredibly brilliant and beautiful daughters, Amelia Luna Motes and Lucia Isabella Motes, and they are 6 and 4 years old. And they're they take up a lot of time, and they reward us in so many different ways. So there's always, as you know, Amy, it's a balance,
Yes.
in terms of, um, you know, talking to adult human beings is very important, right?
It is.
But
It
we
is.
also want to be able to enjoy these small creatures every moment that
Yes.
they're little and cute. So anyway, so that's a little bit about me. My father and mother have, they've run Motes Orchids for 40 plus years, and my parents had the idea of starting orchid festivals back in like 1996, 1997.
Hmm.
And the idea initially was to have an alternative to really elaborate orchid shows, which do have these incredibly large installations of plants. And the reason for that was because the burden on the growers was extremely high, and it was also very exclusionary. So a typical orchid show would have like only like 20 vendors, right? 20
Hmm.
growers.
Okay.
And and there was all this, like, this was also, before the internet was a big deal. And so there was a lot of like gatekeeping and um, a lot of kind of exclusion of people who were not the in club or whatever, or they
Hmm.
weren't seen to be, the right kind of people to participate in the orchid show. It was like, a little snooty. And
Hmm.
so, you know, um, my parents saw an opportunity to promote orchids in a different way, which was inclusive and which involved many more growers, especially international growers, because an international grower cannot afford to bring enough plants for an elaborate display
Right.
of plants, right?
Hmm.
So that was the initial idea. That was when Redland was started back in like 1997, and it just grew and grew from there. And people really bought into the concept, and we had thousands of people attend each year, to the point that now, like last year, we had 15,000 people
That's a
attend the
huge
Redland International
number.
Orchid Festival. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And our biggest problem last year was getting people admitted fast enough, and also parking. And so luckily this year, this is one of the logistical problems that you encounter. This year we've taken steps to make sure that everybody gets admitted really quickly.
Hmm.
People won't be standing in lines, and also that we're going to have additional parking. So there you go.
I was at
That's me, and that's the thing.
yeah, I was at the Tamiami Orchid Festival earlier this
Mm,
year, and I got in real quick. So whatever you're
that's
doing,
great.
I think worked. So
That's
props to you
great. I'm
guys.
really glad
Yeah.
to hear it. Thank you so
I've been
much.
no
Yeah,
problem. I've been several times and absolutely love it. So I would
good.
definitely recommend that whoever's out there. So the next one, so let's just
Yeah,
talk about the schedule a little so that the listeners
sure.
know. So I think the Tamiami Orchid Festival happens around the new year, right? Usually in
Yeah,
January.
well, it's actually, we try to do it always on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. weekend.
Right.
And we're actually kind of in the process of debating like whether we should make it like a Saturday, Sunday, Monday show as opposed to a Friday, Saturday, Sunday show. And I was just talking with someone today whose opinion I respect, and they're like, "Ooh, I'm not sure." So,
Right.
excuse me, kind of like thinking about that a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, we try to do it always on that weekend. Yeah.
Okay. And then the Redland International Orchid Festival this year
Mhm.
is happening in May. Does it usually happen in May?
It's always the weekend after Mother's Day, which causes some, consternation in my household, right? Because
Okay. Oh,
because
you're working through
we're
Mother's
yeah,
Day.
yeah, we're usually like heavily involved in preparations during
Yeah.
Mother's Day, and like I'm always like the idiot who like doesn't have like the perfect Mother's Day setup. So I'm trying to work on that. I'm really struggling. So if any of your listeners have good Mother's Day ideas, I'm open to it. Also, like, it's a little bit tougher for me because I can't do flowers, right? Like,
Mhm.
because flowers are just like every day.
Right.
Um, so
So maybe
I'm like,
chocolate.
right. So chocolate is good. Yeah, yeah. We actually discovered this wonderful place called Norman's Chocolates.
Oh.
We were sent some chocolates so we advertise on WLRN, which is the local public radio station,
Mhm.
and it actually might not be the most efficient way to advertise, but we like supporting them, and we have a really long relationship with them over 30 years. So we continue
That's
to
wonderful.
advertise
Hmm.
on them, and yeah, and actually we do reach some people who sometimes surprise me, right? I'm like sometimes I like ask like some young people, and I'm like I expect they're going to be like Instagram, like where'd you like whenever I see somebody who's like doesn't seem to like be a familiar face, I'm like okay, like
Yeah.
is this your first time? Yes. Okay. How did you discover us? And like they're often like public radio. So I'm like, oh, cool. But anyway, so they as a thank you, they sent us some of these Norman chocolates, and they are delicious. I think they're based in Florida, like out of Sarasota. They're a little pricey, so it's not
Okay.
like an everyday kind of thing, but
Yeah.
they're definitely well worth it for a special occasion.
Well, I'm sold. I'll check them out.
Good.
I do want to say, before we start talking about the installations,
Yeah. Sure.
Bart had sent me some pictures, like as we're prepping for the podcast, getting all
Mm,
like the materials ready. If you
cool.
are into photography, going to one of these events is such a good idea. When you showed me the book, it reminded me, like my eyes welled up a little when I was looking at some of like the photos you sent me. I was like, these are like
Oh,
breathtakingly gorgeous. Like they are
I'm
so
so
nice.
glad.
So
Yeah, it's so great.
if you're even if you're not into plants, but if you're an amateur photographer or
Yes.
whatever, like these events are so great just for the photography that you might get out of it. Like it's really amazing.
100%, and we encourage photography. There's no restrictions on photography. Sometimes I get emails like, "Oh, like what are the rights restrictions?" No, there's no
Oh,
restrictions.
okay.
We only ask. I actually, funnily enough, I usually say like, "Hey, like if you could send us some of your photographs after the event, that'd be great." Very few people do, which is okay. It's just people get busy, whatever.
Yeah,
But but the only thing that we ask is that people not touch the flowers, right? So if you're
of
framing
course.
a
Hmm.
photograph, don't touch the flowers. And back to what you're saying about the installations, like don't step into like if everybody likes to take cute pictures, but you
Yeah.
have to take the picture to the side. Like you can't
Yeah.
step into the display and disrupt it. So
Yeah.
that's those are really the only things. But yeah, we actually have three wonderful videographers that we work with
Hmm.
for the events, and they all produce really neat stuff. And you can check out more of that on our Instagram account, which is at Orchid Festival.
Awesome. Yes, and I think we've been putting together a list of all of the Orchid Festival websites,
Oh, good.
description,
Hmm.
registration, discount codes. So if you're looking for any of those things, they'll be in the description
Awesome.
box below. Yeah.
Great. I'm going to get that from you afterwards.
Yeah.
I need that.
Okay, so installations. So let's talk a little bit about the difference. So Bart does a few different festivals, and
Yeah.
the events happening at the festivals can be different. So one, there's a reason to go to every festival, and then B, so I think at the Redlands Orchid Festival, what we discussed was that there's going to be judging. There's going to be like flower competitions, right? Like flower
Right.
shows. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Sure.
and I think it's not only professional, but it's also amateurs, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So how does
So
that work?
the Yeah, so at Temiemi we have basically what's like a show within a festival. Like we have like the standard floor displays that you might see at an orchid show. We don't have that at Redland for a number of reasons. Just first of all, because the event was not designed with that in mind. Second of
Mhm.
all, because it's outdoors, it's under tents, and so it's not really conducive to that. And third, it's really geared towards the international vendors, and they can't do that stuff. So instead, what we have is we ask each of the vendors to display several what we call award quality and plants, which doesn't mean they're going to get an award. Obviously, the nature of things is you can be awesome and not get an award, but we ask for them to display those. They get judged, and alongside those, we also solicit. If you go to the website, you'll see instructions on how you can enter your own plants into award contention. You'll be eligible for AOS awards, for ribbons, and also for some cash prizes.
That's awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so this might sound like a funny question, but I know that
I love funny questions.
I know. So the way that I got into gardening was actually kind of through orchids, because I think when people think about
Yeah.
gardens, they always want something like a pretty, flowery, bright type of flower, and orchids meet a lot of these criterias, you know?
Sure.
So I got a few orchids. I love them, but I know that when it comes to doing a show, you need the flower to be blooming at the right time. You can't just kind of bring a non-blooming orchid and be like, my orchid's the
Yeah.
best, right? So how would like an amateur work out that timing to make that happen?
Well, I'll tell you, actually, the easiest way to do it is to buy plants that are in bloom at the Redland International Orchid Festival. And then you know
Oh,
that they're probably going to be in bloom again the next year. It's a good
oh, that's a
question.
good idea. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like, we really like, so in our breeding, like what my father has emphasized with breeding is we want plants that bloom all the time. Martin always likes to say, nobody likes orchid plants. They like orchid flowers. Right. So I think that's true to some degree, although, you see now with rare plants, and we could talk a little bit about the Rare Plant Festival later,
Hmm.
which we also organize. People are into like the leaves and stuff like that. But when it comes to orchids, typically we want flowers. So yeah, I mean, like there's gonna be different plants that are in bloom at different times, and sometimes you get the luck of the draw. And one interesting thing about Redland is it was designed as an event which would take place when like not typical orchids were in bloom, so like less phalaenopsis and more other types of orchids.
Hmm.
With climate change, we're actually seeing that some of these patterns have been thrown off a little bit. So,
Yeah.
like for example, we have a lot of stuff in bloom right now, which should be blooming like next month, and we're low key bummed out about that, but it's okay.
Right.
We'll have
Yeah.
other stuff in bloom then, but people's actually, because Redland is such an important event, people actually, and it's been going on for so long, for decades. Um, growers started to breed plants which were designed to bloom at the time of Redland. They knew that they were going to be going to Redland, and so they started selecting for plants that bloom around Redland time. So yeah, so it's an interesting question on really multiple levels,
Yeah.
and the answer really is get a broad variety of plants. I
Yeah.
like people always like the orchid world is funny. I guess every kind of like a group of people has this dynamic where people want to be the insiders and they want to like be super special, and so sometimes they want you to poop on like common garden variety fails, but I never do,
Right.
because I'm like, dude, like if that's what got you into orchids, that's awesome. Like the
Yeah.
fact that we have these relatively high quality phalaenopsis for cheap at a supermarket is awesome. So I always say, look, you want to have a broad variety. You want to have some of those
Hmm.
basic phalaenopsis. You want to have some big vandas that bloom like maybe once or twice a year. And then you want to have some of the type of plants that we grow, like the ones that bloom all the time. They might not
Right.
have the biggest flowers, but they just bloom all the time. They're fragrant. They're gorgeous. So it's really about having a variety of plants. And so I
Love it.
guess the answer is more plants.
And okay, so if you've never been to one of these events before, pro tip,
Yeah.
go with like a wagon, because you start
Mm,
buying things and you said buy more plants, and I'm with you on this
yeah.
one. But the best time that I've been is when my kids were small and I would take them in the stroller. And then you could like
Yes.
use the bottom of the stroller to like store the plants in there. But when you go
Yes.
to one of these events, if you don't have a young kid with a stroller and a
Hmm.
basket, take a wagon. Those wagons are
Yeah.
super helpful at these events.
They are, and it's actually one of the biggest asks that we get is like, do you rent wagons at the show? Do you do it?
Hmm.
I would love to be able to do that. Unfortunately, we haven't found a partner who we can work with on that yet.
Right.
But you can buy them different places. You can buy them at
Yeah.
Costco, whatever. They fold down. I think they're a great investment. And also,
Yeah.
like, I see people at orchid events and other events who have their kids in the wagon, which is perfect to me.
Yeah. Okay, so when you are entering one of these competitions, what are the judges looking for? So, like, for instance, I have orchids in bloom, but I have no
Yeah.
idea whether, like, what would make them a competition worthy orchid. They bring me joy, so
Right.
I'm happy to have them. But if I were to like, let's get to me, like it would be a shot in the dark. Like maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
Well, that's a really good point, and so my dad and my wife are both AOS orchid judges, right? They're American
Hmm.
Orchid Society judges, which means they went through this rigorous process, and they've been, taught to not be able to appreciate a lot of common orchids. No, I'm just teasing, but no, they really, sometimes I'll be like, I'll send Karina something, and I'll be like, Karina, check this out, it looks so cool. And she's like, like, I don't know, like that.
Yeah,
There's like a little problem here. So,
right.
I mean, first of all, the first thing is that it has to be in good condition. It
Hmm.
has to have all the flowers undamaged. So, for example, if you lose a flower, unfortunately, it won't be judged. Like you can bring it, but it's just not going to be
Right.
judged.
Okay.
And then there's flower quality awards and there's cultural awards, and you could have a plant which is like super duper spectacular, in terms of like, wow, like it's like really big and it's got all these flowers. Like each individual flower might not meet the criteria or the
Hmm.
flower spike of an AOS judge for the flower quality, but they might say, you know what, this plant was grown so well that we're going to give it a cultural award. So
Okay.
there's a lot of technical criteria, which vary from plant to plant, right? So it's kind of like, like dog breeds, like when they have a dog show,
Yes.
like they have like different standards for the different breeds. Like
Okay.
orchid judges have the same thing. They have different standards for the different breeds, and they base it on that. And some of them are like we actually run into this because, my father's breeding is very innovative and it doesn't follow the normal rules, right? So a lot of times, like they'll be judged by a standard for like a flat Sandriana type flower, and it just is never going to meet that because it's just totally different.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's not
Okay.
good.
That's cool.
So you can, you got to take your shots, right? You miss
Yeah.
100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
So we recommend that if you feel really good about a plant, and you know that it's gorgeous, and like you post it on social media and it got a bunch of likes, well, it could be award worthy. You're never going to
Okay.
know until you take it. And if you don't get an AOS award, you might still get a ribbon, right?
Okay.
So the ribbons are lower standard. Professionals don't take them super seriously, but for amateurs, they're like a really nice thing, and they're certainly worth celebrating. But you can get like a best in class or something like that, and we also have some prize money that attaches to some of those categories as well.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
what separates an amateur plant from a professional plant? How do those start like I don't know, how does that pull apart?
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes nothing. I mean, you know, I think I think that there's plants which are gorgeous to look at, but which just don't meet the criteria that a professional might have, which is really towards breeding or whether it's worthy of mass reproduction.
Okay.
And so again, one of the funniest questions when we sell orchids, one of the questions we get is like, somebody will say, like, someone will see a plant that's like $45, let's say, right?
Mhm.
Or $25. Let's say it's 25, one's 25 and one's 250. And they'll be like, well, why is this one 25 and this one is 250? And I'll
Yeah.
always say, if you can't tell the difference, be super happy and buy the cheaper one.
Yeah.
Don't ask any more questions, right?
Right.
Because
Of course.
if like that difference is not for you, it's for somebody else. And it's not an elitism thing. It's like, I think it's better to be able to appreciate beauty in all kinds of different things. But there are certain things like, um, uh, the intensity of the colors, the patterns, the markings, the form. There's a formal criteria that people go through, and then
Mhm.
some people, if you're in the know, right, like it might be something where it's like, okay, like for example, like if you see like a white phalaenopsis is no big deal, but a white tessellata, white vanda is a super big deal because it's very rare, right?
Hmm.
So if you were in the know, then you're going to be like, wow, I can't believe this is a white vanda. This is really cool. So stuff like that. It matters to some people. It doesn't matter to other people. I think that you're better off if it doesn't matter to you to some
Yeah.
degree, and you can get what you enjoy. And yeah.
I will
Love
certainly
it.
say, at least for myself, I'm still at the point where
Yeah,
if I just like look at it and I'm happy, like that's good enough for me. Like I would never be able to tell
totally.
like a rare flower from a non-rare flower. You know, like if you look at it
Right.
and you like it,
Absolutely. No,
that's a great
that's really
flower.
all that matters. And what the
Yeah.
really great thing about the Redland International Orchid Festival is you're gonna find everything. There's gonna be it's like a Pixar film, right? There's something for the kids, there's something for the adults. At the Redland International Orchid Festival, if you want a $15 Phalaenopsis, then you're gonna find that $15 Phalaenopsis.
Yep.
If you want, a super rare species for quite a lot of money, then you're going to
Yeah.
find that there. And the difference too is you can find that Phalaenopsis at Home Depot, but you cannot find that other plant at Home
Right.
Depot. And so we get a lot of people who are really like tremendous collectors. You know, we get people who are super collectors. We get people who manage estates for like very, very
Oh,
affluent
that's so
people.
cool. I would have
Yes.
never guessed that that
Yeah.
was a thing.
Oh yeah, like one year we had so we had a VIP event. We do not have a VIP event this year. We just have early admission, which you can if you go down below buy tickets, there's a special
Yeah.
option. You can get in a couple hours early, and we're also going to have, hopefully, knock on wood, if they come like in time, we're going to have this little commemorative pin to give everybody at
Nice.
the event. Yeah, so it's like a little bonus you get, but. One year we had a special VIP event for Tamiami, and somebody bought like 4 tickets, right? And like the name on the credit card did not match the name of any of the 4 people. So I was like, is this
Right.
fraud? Like, what's
Right.
going on? And so but you don't want to be rude either, right? You don't want to like make an assumption. So I like just wrote the person like very politely, like, oh hey, I noticed this, did you put the right name? They're like, oh yes, 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 yes. Mr. So and so is sending 4 of his staff to pick orchids for him.
Not wow.
Yeah. So I was like,
That's
oh,
really
okay.
cool.
Yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
become part of that
So,
staff.
right? I
Yeah.
know, man. It's like being on a super yacht or something. I'm like, what is going on? And I Googled the person, and they weren't like a famous person or anything. I was like, okay, I guess they just
That's awesome.
really love plants and have the money.
Yeah.
So thank you for supporting the industry.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's shift gears because I know
Mm-hmm.
that at when I go to Tamiami Orchid Festival, the
Yes.
second you walk in, there's a huge installation that immediately
Mm-hmm.
catches the eye. I mean, it's the first thing you
Sure.
see. What goes into that? Like those are
Mm.
amazing. And I can
Yeah.
only
Well,
assume a lot of vendors come together to make something like that happen. But you tell me.
yeah, so it's a really good question. We're actually very fortunate to be able to partner with Todd Anderson of Anderson Landscaping, who is a you know very well respected landscape installation guy. He does all the high end homes here in Miami,
Nice.
and he puts in so he has a whole crew of people who put in like the palm trees and the this and the that, and then
Yeah.
there's like waterfalls and all that kind of
Yes.
thing. So he does that. That's like kind of like the scaffolding or the foundation of the thing. And
Hmm.
then we have orchid societies, and we have vendors who put in each individual display. Um, and they will spend, like half a day doing that. The orchid societies will spend like a full day with like a whole crew of people who belong to their society doing that stuff.
That's so cool. And I
Yeah.
think when I've walked by before, you sometimes you see like the one that caught my eye this year, it was a giant orchid. I don't know what it was, but it just had
Mhm.
so many spikes and little flowers. And so for a second you thought like it seemed like you were walking by a flowering tree, like a short tree, but a flowering
Oh,
tree.
wow.
And it was
Cool.
amazing. Yeah, it was
I
really
love that.
cool. So, okay, you mentioned the Orchid Society. So are
Yeah.
they partners of yours when you do these
Yes.
events?
Yeah, they are. They not only put in the displays, but they also supply us with volunteers. And, we contribute tens of thousands of dollars to orchid societies each year to support their efforts and, to say thank you for the work that they've done with us.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And my wife is on the board of the Coral Gables Orchid Society. So we have a special relationship with them, but we have relationships with other orchid societies. And other, these are the in-county orchid societies, and there's other
Mm-hmm.
Florida orchid societies who we support by, they send buses, and we help subsidize their bus trip, and we also, sorry, I'm getting distracted. We also we give them free admission, and we do some other things for them. So it's kind of like symbiotic, and they bring all their members, and their members go nuts and buy a lot of plants, and the vendors
Yeah,
are
of
happy
course.
about that. So it kind of supports. It's kind of reciprocal.
Yes. What is it like
Yeah.
to volunteer at one of these events? Because when I saw there were volunteer options, I was like, that sounds really cool to just like
Yeah.
be around these flowers all day.
It is. I mean, it's you get a little bit of a vision of what goes into organizing one of these events.
Mm-hmm.
We you know basically what we ask people to do is like a 4 hour shift, and they'll be like watching a door or watching the plants, or directing people, directing traffic, giving info to people. And so typically, and then we give them like little rewards. We give the society some money, and we give the person who did the stuff like a little reward, like a book or a t-shirt or something. So it's a good experience. Some people are like really into it. Some people are like clearly just doing it because they wanted to help their society, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a neat thing. And we have some kind of like people who we've developed relationships with. Like we have a guy who we love, and when my wife was super pregnant with our second child, she actually gave birth to her January 31st, and the orchid show was like January 15th. And so this guy, who's a really cool guy, Caleb, he came down from Virginia to help us out with the orchid show. And so since that time, we've flown him down every time we do one of these events, and he's
Aw.
willing to do it. And it's just a really cool relationship that we developed over time.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so the third event that you do is the Rare Plant Festival. Am I getting that name right?
Yeah, Rare Plant Festival. Yeah, it's the Rare
Okay,
Plant Festival. Mhm.
so what that one I haven't been to. So what is like I know we have installations at one, we have
Mhm.
competitions at another. What's the
What's the
attraction at
hook?
the Rare Plant Festival? Yeah.
I mean, so the hook, the what's the word I'm looking for? So the Rare Plant Festival has an interesting story, which is basically that like it's a COVID baby. We had to postpone the other events in various years
Hmm.
for various reasons. We ended up having an event in October, and people were like, "Okay, so you're going to continue having this event in October?" You know, we were like, "I don't know, like, do we want to do another orchid festival? No, we want to do a rare plant festival." And so the idea is like we want to use rare plants as a gateway drug to orchids, right? So like a lot of people, because a lot of people are like it's really weird. Like with younger people, they are not as into orchids as they are
Yeah.
into like Hoyas and aroids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's we want to educate them and expose them to orchids as well as being
Hmm.
like you know uh, another type of rare plant that you might enjoy. So what we
Yeah.
thought was, okay, we're gonna try to emphasize the plants more than just orchids, and we did. And so I guess the draw is, it's the same. It's kind of like a Redland, but we just emphasize more rare plants. We have even more rare plants from places like Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, all over, Colombia, Ecuador, those places.
That's awesome. For
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that. So I know you're organizing the events, so I know but I guess I don't qualify as a young person anymore. Because for me, it was
I
definitely
know
like
it's terrible, right?
I
No,
know
you can still be young as far as I'm concerned.
it's it's whatever I say, right? So
Exactly. It's my podcast, damn it.
no, I mean like you're as young as you feel, like
Absolutely,
if you tell
yes,
yourself, but no, but enough
yes.
things have happened in the past few years that I know I'm no longer a young person.
Right.
But for
I
me,
in one of my emails, I said, people have different ideas about what the best words in the English language are. Like, I've heard that "you up" after 2 a.m. is considered very romantic for people who don't know what lower back pain is. So, I totally get it.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
But for
You can
me,
use it.
like orchids were kind of the gateway, kind of like
Sure.
they're so pretty. They can manage in our climate.
Right.
With
We're
their
very
their
lucky here in
color,
South Florida. Yeah.
yeah, they're colorful. In my opinion, they're low maintenance. I know not everybody
Mhm.
feels that way. I feel that they're very low maintenance.
Depends on the
So
orchid, but yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
yeah, and so I think the thing that gets people with orchids, I don't know if this is what you have found, is that
Mhm.
like my best friend, every time her orchid just stops flowering, she'll come and tell me, "Amy,
Oh,
my orchid's dead.
I
Do you
know.
want it?" And I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with this orchid." Just
No, I
cut,
know.
just cut the spike off and just wait. Like it'll come back. She's like, no,
Right.
it's dead. Like she with 100% confidence, like, nope, this orchid is dead. And
Right.
I think a
Yes.
lot of people like really expect them to be flowering year round. And I'm like, sure, I'll take it. I mean, if you're just gonna drop it off at my door and you refuse to look at it again, of course I'll take this orchid.
Yeah.
But I think like half my
No, exactly.
orchids are my best friend just like dropping them off at my door. Like another orchid died, and I'm like, no, it didn't, but I'll take it. So,
Yes. No, no, you have to stop fighting it. You just have to
yeah,
like lean into it and be like,
yeah.
listen, most people, this orchid is dead, but through dark magic, I'm going to bring it back to life, and then they'll just be
I
amazed. Yeah.
I like that. I like that take on this whole situation. That'll definitely be, yeah.
Good.
That
I'm glad. All
I
right.
tell
You
people
got
from
to
now
film
on.
it though, or you got to at least tell us on your podcast in the future at some
Yes,
point. In the
absolutely.
amazement. Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I agree. And, we've actually had the reverse situation, which is like, I'm always like a little bit embarrassed for people, but like we'll give them cut flowers, right? And I'll be like,
Mhm.
oh, thank you so much. How do I keep it alive? And I'm like, well, there's no way. So,
That's what that's funny.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So, I think at this point we could wrap up. So,
Cool.
for all the viewers out there, if you are planning on going to the Redland International Orchid Festival, we have the
Mhm.
registration link below, and Bart has also been nice enough to give us a discount code, which is Amy, I think, for the podcast. So if you're a viewer of
Amy,
the
yep,
podcast, yeah. So you can find all the links in the description box. You can connect with Bart. I think I'm
yeah,
sharing your Instagram, the websites, all
cool.
of that. So description box below.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and that code will be valid until May 1st. It's for
Yes.
30% off, and it's valid till May 1st. And then, May 1st, the discounts, go down. We
Yep.
have a kind of a informal policy that like we want to make sure that discounts are always the best at the beginning.
Yes.
So, for a couple of different reasons, right? Like just where the rubber meets the road is like we want people to buy tickets early. It helps us plan. It leads to us spending less on advertising, so we can spend more on other things. And also, we don't want anybody who like bought tickets early to be like, "Oh man, I could have waited till the last minute." And like, nobody wants to feel like a sucker for being proactive, right? So yeah,
And
buy your tickets early before May 1st, and you'll get 30% off.
and it gives you time to budget so that you can save your
Yes.
money and buy so many orchids because there's going to
Yeah,
be so many options.
and we do have and you can get a refund, no questions asked, up to a week before the show starts. So, there's no risk. So just get your tickets now.
That's great. Perfect.
Yeah,
So, okay. Thank you so much, Bart. If anybody has any questions, please leave them down below. It might be our next podcast. It might be an idea that we develop. I'll definitely be connecting with anybody who leaves comments. So go ahead, leave your comments. Let us know what you're thinking about. If you have any orchid questions, and we'll try getting back to you.
that's so great. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for providing this to the
Absolutely.
community.
Oh, thank you so much, Bart. I'm really excited that you joined and that we were able to have this conversation. It means a lot.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye.